And we're going to start this off by asking you to tell me which one of the drugs takes you from A to B on this curve. Give them a moment to think about that. Then we'll discuss what this curve is, but I want to see what our pre-test knowledge is. Let's go ahead and see how they responded if we have that. So 48% said that we gave a diuretic, 27% said we gave norepi. All right, let's go to the dosaria and we'll talk about this concept of the ventricular function in hemodynamics. So the curve we just showed there is the Starling curve. And so just to remind you, this is the association between preload and stroke volume. So as you increase preload, the stroke volume generally goes up. The corollary relationship is the relationship between afterload and stroke volume, and we'll draw that one here. So here's afterload and stroke volume on this axis. So what happens when we increase afterload? The stroke volume goes down. It does the opposite of an increase in preload. So the stroke volume, the forced tension curve here on the right, and the Starling curve on the left. The last curve that we may interact with if we continue to do these chalk talks with you is the pressure-volume relationship. So we have pressure here, volume here, remember, as the ventricle fills diastole, then you have isovolumic contraction, ejection, and isovolumic relaxation. The difference between here and here is the stroke volume. This point is your preload, and for the purposes of this point is our afterload point. So if we take these concepts and we do something like give this patient IV fluids, so that is an isolated change in preload. If we do an isolated change in preload, you might move from point A here to point B here, because all you did was give IV fluid from there to there. You didn't change contractility, you didn't change afterload, you just gave IV fluids. That same change on the forced tension curve over here, if you started off right here at point A and gave IV fluids, well, preload isn't on this slide. Afterload didn't change. So, but we know that that the stroke volume went up, so you actually moved straight up from A to B here. And so your whole forced tension curve moves up a little bit to here. So if the variable isn't on the axis and you change one of the other parameters, it's going to be a straight up or straight down move on either the Starling curve or on the forced tension curve. And down here at the bottom, if we give this patient IV fluids, we're going to move out here. So your stroke volume will have increased by this much here. So the idea will have a series of questions of asking you this concept. We gave this patient IV fluids, their stroke volume went up. That's represented on the forced tension curve. I'm sorry, on the Starling curve here. On the forced tension curve, you move to a new forced tension relationship because you changed preload, which is not on this graph. And at the bottom, giving IV fluids just simply widens the whole pressure volume loop because now the stroke volume's increased because you optimize preload for this patient. So this is really just the basic introduction of these three curves with a simple hemodynamic maneuver. So if we go back to that question we asked and poll you again, so here we're going from A to B on the Starling curve. There you go. Fantastic. So this is the opposite of what we just drew on here. We gave this person a diuretic. It's a pure decrease in their stroke volume. This is the Starling curve, so all we did was slide down that curve. On the force tension curve, you would have dropped to a new force tension relationship below. And on the pressure volume loop, it would have made that pressure volume loop skinnier. So since you did so well there, let's give him one more. So here's both the Starling curve and the force tension curve, and which of the drugs here results in a change from A to B? It's the same A to B on both of these curves, are used simultaneously. Option 4, but a smattering of others. It looks like we need to do another lesson on these. Maybe at the next break we can come back and do this one, just to lock these concepts home.